My dear Wormwood, I hope my last letter has convinced you that the troughs of dullness or dryness through which your patient is going at present will not, of itself, give you his soul, but needs to be properly exploited. What forms of exploitation should I take will be now considered. In the first place, I have always found that the trough periods of the human's undulation provide excellent opportunity for all the sensual temptations, particularly those of sex. This may surprise you, because, of course, there is more physical energy, and therefore more potential appetite, at the peak periods, but you must remember that the power of resistance are then also at their highest. The health and spirit, which you want to use in producing lust can also, alas, be very easily used, for work or play or thought, or innocuous merriment. The attack has a much better chance of success when the man's whole inner world is drab and cold and empty. And it is also to be noted that the trough sexuality is subtly different in quality from that of the peak, much less likely to lead to the milk and water phenomenon which the human call being in love. Much more easily drawn into perversion, much less contaminated by those generous and imaginative, and even spiritual concomitants which often render human sexuality so disappointing. It is the same with other desires of the flesh. You are much more likely to make your man a sound drunkard by pressing drink on him as an anodyne when he is dull and weary than by encouraging him to use it as a means of merriment among his friends when he is happy and expansive. Never forget that when we are dealing with any pleasure, it is healthy, and normal, and satisfying. We are in a sense on the enemy's ground. I know we have won many a soul to pleasure. All the same, it is his invention, not ours. He made the pleasures. All of our research so far has not enabled us to produce even one. All we can do is to encourage the humans to take the pleasures which our enemy has produced, at times or in ways or in degrees, which he has forbidden. Hence, we always try to work away from the natural conditions of any pleasure to that in which it is the least natural, least redolent of its maker, and least pleasurable. An ever-increasing craving for an ever-diminishing pleasure is the formula. It is more certain, and it's better style? To get the man's soul and to give him nothing in return. That is what really gladdens our Father's heart. And the troughs are the time for beginning the process. But, there is an even better way of exploiting the trough. I mean through the patient's own thoughts about it. As always, the first step is to keep knowledge out of his mind. Do not let him suspect the law of undulation. Let him assume that the first ardors of his conversion might have been expected to last, and ought to have last, forever, and that his present dryness is an equally permanent condition. Having once got this misconception well fixed into his head, you may then proceed in various ways. It all depends on whether your man is of the despondent type, who can be tempted to despair, or if the wishful thinking type, who can be assured that all is well. The former type is getting rare among humans. If your patient should happen to belong to it, everything is easy. You have only to keep him out of the way of experienced Christians, an easy task nowadays, to direct his attention to the appropriate passages in the scripture, and then to set him to the work on the desperate design of recovering his old feelings by sheer willpower, and the game is ours. If he is of the more hopeful type, your job is to make his acquiesce in the present low temperature of his spirit, and gradually become content with it, persuading him that it is not so low after all. In a week or two you will be making him doubt whether the first days of his Christianity were not perhaps a little excessive. Talk to him about moderation of all things. If you can't get him to the point of thinking that Christian is all very well up to a point, you can feel quite happy about his soul. A moderated religion is as good for us as having no religion at all, and more amusing. Another possibility is that of direct attack on his faith. You have caused him to assume that the trough is permanent. Can you not persuade him that his religious phase is just going to die away, like all of his previous phases? Of course, there is no convincible way of getting by reason, from the proposition, I am losing faith in this, to the proposition this is false. But, as I said before, it is jargon, not reason, you must rely on. The mere word, phase, will most likely do the trick. I assume that the creature has been through several of them before, they all have, and that he always feels superior, and patronizing, to the ones he has emerged from, not because he really criticized them, but simply because they are in his past. You keep him well fed on the hazy ideas, of progress and development, and the historical point of view, I trust, and give him lots of modern biographies to read. The people in them are always emerging from phases, aren't they? You see the idea? Keep his mind off the plain antithesis between true and false. Nice shadowy expressions, it was just a phase, I've been through all that, and don't forget the blessed word adolescence. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape.